I'm Zev. I'm going to 11th grade at SAR High School, and my project this summer is the gesture-controlled RC car. So I control this car with a series of gestures that I can make with this hand, and I'll just show you the demo right now. So to make it go forward, I go like that. To make it go backward, I go like that. Right is that, and left is that. And then, so as you can see, I have 4 flex sensors on my hand, and these flex sensors are actually called variable resistors, as you might have seen in some other projects. And these flex sensors will input different resistance values into the Arduino that's on my glove right here, and the values can be changed based on how much each flex sensor is bent. So the Arduino will read different combinations of flex sensor values as different gestures, and then those gestures correspond to specific commands that can be either left, right, forwards, backwards, or stop. And those commands are sent in the form of plain text through these NRF modules, as you might have seen before, which is just another type of wireless connection. And it's sent as a plain text through the NRF connection to this Arduino that's on the car here. And that Arduino will read that text as specific instructions for the motors, and then execute those commands. And so that's how the gestures will go to control the motors. So this part with NRF, the wireless communication, was by far the most challenging part of my project. There were 2 main reasons mostly. One was initially the code itself was really complicated to set up, and I was mostly just completely unfamiliar with it. It seemed like a whole new language. And then after that, there's specific wires that need to be connected to the NRF modules that I'd already plugged in before, and I had to do a lot of rearranging of my wires, which caused a lot of different problems, mostly with overlapping code and overlapping wires. And so it was really confusing, and it took me a really long time to get past that. But finally, I got the function after a lot of playing around and troubleshooting and all that kind of stuff. And now it works pretty well, I'd say. I'm still mastering the controls. I don't want it to complicate. But yeah, so overall, I learned a lot this summer, from sewing to sewing the flex sensors. It took a while to figure out, a bunch of practice runs, to soldering, to coding the Arduinos. And one really valuable lesson that I learned is, with all the problems that I faced, which were there were a lot of them. There were a lot of problems, and I figured out that it took me a really long time to solve the problems, but the main part of all that time-consuming stuff was figuring out the source of that problem, and that just takes time. But once I actually found out what the problem is, it's really easy to solve, and it gives me confidence for the future and projects that I hope to do that actually do have the skills to solve these problems, and I really can do it. So thank you. So thank you so much. Questions?
So you said that you sent the instructions in the form of plain text.
Yeah.
Is there any particular reason why you just sent this plain text and not some other kind of method?
Well, we kind of took some time to devise a strategy. To be honest, that was kind of my favorite part. It was really fun to figure that out. But what we realized is we could easily send the text itself. We didn't have to make more code to come up with some new data, and it was a lot easier to send as just plain text. And then we use this function. It's called a string compare, where you can using if statements. I could say something like, if the text that it's receiving could be the command right to move right. If that matches the word right, it's a variable called text, and it can be different things based on my gestures. And if that variable reads right, then the car moves right. And we figured out that was a really simple way to communicate, and it kept things really organized and under control. Brendan?
Yes. Beautiful project, first of all. And secondly, could you talk about the problems you faced while you were integrating multiple systems in this?
Yeah, so I started first by connecting the flex sensors to the motors through wires using one Arduino, and I didn't have to use these NRF modules. But then when I was integrating those NRF modules, first I had to separate the wires into two different Arduinos, and I first had to become familiar with this Arduino Nano here, which is a little bit more complicated. But then after that, I realized there are two pins, there are three pins, I think, that the NRF module, two pins, right, that the NRF modules required, they are required to be connected into, because that's how those specific pins are what the Arduino uses to communicate. So those had already been taken previously because I wasn't anticipating that, and I didn't know that. So that took some time to figure out, and then when I separated the codes, I had switched around some pins for the new Arduino, and I had some code in the code for my glove, so I have two separate codes now, and I had a code for the motors that I accidentally kept in the code for the glove that was assigning different pins, so they were all overlapping, and it caused all kinds of weird problems, and I was like, I thought I fixed it, and then more problems came up, and then that was like the thing, it took a really long time, like 4 days, I told my parents about it for a few days. I finally figured it out. I just had to remove 3 lines of code that just weren't doing anything, and then it worked fine. So.